Go ahead and say your full name and spell it for me.
All right, Thersa Huffines, Theresa.
And where are you from?
Salisbury, Maryland.
Salisbury. So, what's your title with the group?
I'm the facilitator, basically, kind of a co-founder of the group.
And how did you become the co-founder of this group?
Basically, there was several different entities. There was like the Addict's Mom, I Hate Heroin, which was out of, I believe, Colorado or something like that. And then we needed something locally. And so Maryland Heroin Awareness Advocates was trying to establish local chapters just to get out the word. And their mission was a little different than ours. So we kind of broke off from the group and found it shoulder to shoulder. But my reason for joining, I think, is so much different than most people's, because it's on a personal level and a professional level. You know, I have my son and then the clientele that I've dealt with.
So tell me about your personal story.
Well, my son, Jacob, is a recovering heroin addict. He has 8 months clean. He's currently incarcerated. But this has been a journey of about 8 months, or 8 years rather, of just up and down, all around. Never had any problems with him until the age of 18. And then it seemed like all hell broke loose. And everything in our lives changed. Like he started distancing himself. He became very isolated, and that was not like our normal relationship. We were very close, and all of a sudden, like, I wasn't seeing him. He didn't bring friends to the home, and then I started seeing signs. You know, as a social worker, you kind of recognize those signs, and so I confronted him. Of course, they're very good at manipulating, pulling on your heartstrings, and but ultimately, you know, I realized he was going down a road that I had no control over. And I thought, well, if I can't control him, what can I do? And I just started reaching out and seeing what sources were there. And at one point, about 4 years ago, he wanted help. And when an addict wants help, it's not as simple as going to the hospital, going to a doctor saying, can you get me a bed? I literally drove from Salisbury to Cambridge, back to PRNC, to St. Mary's County, and around in one day, begging for help, and got nowhere. And it was 2 weeks later, we got a bed for him in St. Mary's County, but we had to use somebody's address. You have to manipulate the system to even be able to use it to get him help.
So did you eventually get him help? Do you remember when the turning point was for you?
For me, it was always keeping it 100, as they say, and just being very open and honest and saying, look, I know something's going on, and but basically it was when he wanted it. It was nothing that I could do. I was in the hospital. He called me up and he was saying, Mom, I have nowhere to go. What do I do? And I said, you're on your own, baby. You got to figure this out. He went to Warwick, and he refused to leave until they did something. He refused to leave, and he was literally begging for help. And so there's so many obstacles and barriers. You have the insurance and the wait time, and he was homeless. And, you know, like, what does he do and where does he go? And here I am as a mom in a hospital, and I can't help him. But that was a blessing in disguise, because he did do the inpatient, and then he went to transitional care. He had a wonderful house manager that ensured he went to IOP, that ensured that they got the help that they needed and connect them to resources. But while in that process, he was detained on an old warrant and subsequently arrested and received a violation of probation and had to go back to jail.
Was it drugs that got him in trouble?
Yes, yes.
So do you think, and I know this is going off topic for just a little bit, but do you feel like the system would be better to deal with or to help kids like your son, to help them instead of incarcerating them, but to rather help them like rehabilitate? Do you think that there's a better way to get to that point?
I absolutely know without a shadow of a doubt that there's a better way. Now, does that mean that they can't get clean and get help in incarceration? No, they can, but it's just as much available there, unfortunately, without, as hard as everyone tries, it still manages to get its way in. We hear it all the time. But I went to the summit and I suggested some things, and you know, rather than violation of probation and recommending incarceration, their first step should be treatment and having them evaluated and assessed and see where they are, because many people are in detox. So then you're just sending them to jail to detox, and it just spirals out of control. So there definitely is. There's some treatments that need to be in place before that happens. And I think also lets that person know that they're valued. Yeah, you messed up, but you know, let's try to get you some help first. But if they don't want it, it's not going to be helpful.
For you, how did it feel as a mom when you first found out that it was heroin?
Devastating. I don't know why, but for some reason we place different levels. Like if someone's an alcoholic, oh, it's alcohol, it's marijuana, and the worst of the worst would be heroin. Oh my God forbid, you know. Some people minimize it. I didn't want to believe it. I could not possibly believe it. But it impacts every socioeconomic status. It really doesn't matter. I tell people, you better start looking in your own family, your neighbors, your employers. It's everywhere, and it's unfortunate. And then when I found out that it wasn't just heroin, you know, because they could sniff it, and you think, well, sniffing is better than intravenous, right? No, there's no difference. But in our mind, you think that's the bottom line, you know, when they do that. And it was heart-wrenching, and it was hard because I felt like, where did I go wrong? What could I have done differently? And he would tell me all along, Mom, there's nothing you could have done differently. It's what I did. It's what I chose. But one of the things that he was able to provide insight to me was when he was younger. He grew up in a military family, and he had young males to role model for him. When he turned 18 and we moved back to the shore, he no longer had that. And there really wasn't that role model to look up to. And so they start going to places where people accept you as you are, you know, come here and come there, and before you know it, it just spirals out of control.
Did he, because you have a better communication, I guess, with him now about what initially started this all, did he tell you the first time he used what it was like, or were you going? Still, the communication's a little tough.
Well, communication is tough because he is incarcerated, but we're very open. He's very open with me. And I have to make sure I don't react, because inside your gut is like, oh my God. But he's very open and forthcoming with me, and you know, and he tells me to this day, like, he can't watch the shows like Interventions or something like that because it just affects him psychologically. But I would say most often it's a co-occurring issue, something underlying that's not been resolved, you know, whether it's depression or anxiety, and they use self-coping and, you know, so forth. And but it started out with minor, you know, like alcohol. Alcohol was never really an issue for him, I don't think. But it wasn't really alcohol, you know, it was just several different things, and you're with different people. And I don't know, honestly, what made him ever try heroin for the first time. I don't know. And but I guess for me it doesn't really matter. I was looking more in depth psychologically, like what was going on in your mind, and how is that going to be different when you return home.
So if you could just explain, what was your son like before he used?
I'm glad you asked that, because most of the time what happens is when someone is incarcerated and they have this whole stigma. They're no longer Jacob, the individual, they're Jacob, the drug user, Jacob, whatever that they did. But Jacob we traveled the world. He was homeschooled from 4th grade on, attached to a private school online. He graduated a year early with a college prep diploma. He was bilingual. He is bilingual. I'm talking as though he's not here. He's still with me, Spanish.
Nice.
My daughter's from China, and so we learned. We've traveled globally, and so.
Did you say you were in the military?
Yeah, my ex-husband was in the military, and so we traveled 60,000 miles a year. So we did a lot of traveling, and Jacob did a lot of traveling. He's well versed. He's highly intelligent, and just very quick on his feet, humorous, and very insightful. He could probably get along with anyone. And yet he still felt so alone, and that's I guess that part where I felt like I let him down, because as close as we were, as a small child, we'd hold hands everywhere we drove, and we would talk and talk and talk and talk, and we still talk and talk and talk like that. But there was that period of active use that I just cried, and I remember one time distinctly that he showed up at my house, and he went to give me a hug, and it just kind of dropped on me, and it was a very heavy weight, and he was so frail, and it was just gut-wrenching. I couldn't let him stay in my home. I couldn't let him stay in my home like that. But I couldn't put him on the street. Where do you go? What do you do? And, my husband's law enforcement. I have a daughter that's 13, it was just so many factors. And, you have to learn to set healthy boundaries, but it's very, very hard.
Has the group helped you?
It helps give me an outlet, because I want to make a difference, and I want to have that outreach. So to be able to kind of make a difference in the community is where my heart lies. How am I going to impact other families, other lives, help them navigate this monstrosity that we have as a healthcare system and resources, and it's just very difficult. So it gives me a way to get back to the community, some insight to offer other families, but our stories similar and they overlap, but bottom line, I think it's exhausting.
Has their help in any way stopped you from blaming yourself?
I think that is something that you have to come to terms with. Just like there's stages of grief, in a way that is very similar to what a family, a mother or parent will go through. Some parents initiate that by cutting their children off, using that tough love approach. Jacob's father did that, and that was not helpful. It only spiraled out of control further. But I believe in his heart, he thought he was doing what was best for him and what was best for his son. But turning your back doesn't help to get resources. So I've always used the motto that I love you unconditionally, but I don't accept those choices. And there's other things that we can do. So I think the group helps remind me not to be complacent. It helps me to give back, and that's where I get my comfort from.
And what's next for Jacob?
Well, I think really a lot of soul searching, which he has done. Rather, he was violated on probation, and rather than getting some type of treatment recommendation like 8505, which he was recommended for in one case but not in another case, and most people are probably saying, what is she talking about? Again, that's because most people aren't educated or even aware of what's out there. I think for him it's been a lot of soul searching and connecting and finding out where his purpose lies. And he has some goals and some ambition, but just like they teach you in NA, just for today, this is where I'm at. And so just for today, he's 8 months clean, and just for today, he's, reading and stimulating his mind. He's extremely philosophical and loves to read, and I'm also his personal DJ because he's musically talented and gifted, he had 12 years of piano instruction, self-taught with guitar and mandolin, and just very, very productive. That's the person I think that I want people to know, not the face that they flashed up on TV or on the news blog saying so-and-so was arrested for such and such before they even were tried and convicted. And I think that is really hard.
So what do you think needs to be the message to the legislators, to the folks who are out there, just anybody who's watching this? Like, what do you, as a mom who's trying to fix the system, what would you say needs to be done? I know it's a lot.
We don't have no time. I would say that first and foremost, we have to look at something other than judiciary punishment. It's not working. That's a revolving circle. There's a huge disparity, as I mentioned earlier, between juveniles and adults. You know, the state is not going to, you know, can keep someone to the age of 21, but if you've never been in any trouble as a youth and you get in trouble at the age 19, 20, 21, you don't have those same treatment availabilities. They don't have insurance. They don't have money. They've exhausted every avenue possible. They don't know where to navigate. So I would say, first and foremost, we need a 24-hour place where someone can go and get help immediately, at least a holding place that's safe environment until they could be assessed medically and then disseminated. See if they're okay to wait 2 weeks for a bed before you say, sorry, Charlie, we can't go. If you go, all we have now is you go to PRMC and they're going to turn around and stick you right back out the door. It doesn't matter. They can literally feel like their life is on the line, but they're not going to keep you.
Yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to mention? I know there's so much.
I know.
But if there's anything else, just let me know. Like, I'll give you my contact information for everybody. So
yeah, I appreciate everything you're doing. And so, you know, I work for a local provider who's been very supportive. We have very good providers in the area, but they need resources.
Right.
And we need a good provider that's going to be structured and follow through.
They know.
Nobody knows.
Did Jacob start with heroin, or did he start like with anything else, like prescription drugs? Because a lot of people say that they get into
Yeah, they do start with other drugs. Like a pill is like $25, $35. You know, heroin you can get for $10.
Is that how Jacob started?
I believe so, yeah. Because he had multiple surgeries. He had 8 ear surgeries on his ears, 3 tympanoplastics, you know, where they had to do things. And I think a strong telling sign if someone is going to be more likely to be addictive. And now they have gene site testing, so they can do a swab and see what medications you're more likely to work for you and which ones aren't, what medications you are taking and what medications you aren't. Yeah, and be more selective in what they're prescribing. And so when he was, I think a telltale sign of addiction is when, say, your child has wisdom teeth pulled and they're prescribed pain medication. If they have that woo movement, I would be scared. You know, my son was like, yeah, this is so fun. And, you know, I took 1 pain pill in my life and I vomited and was sick to death. And I was like, you came from me, no doubt. And so there's a remarkable difference. And there's a genetic component. And there just needs to be more awareness. It's just, and so many barriers, no one to navigate. So we need something where people can go and help, you know, funnel. A better system. We don't. We just have all these little standalone places. So.
Well, thank you for sharing.